What's up, YouTube? We're going to be talking essential metal today, Angra's fourth album, Rebirth. So, Angra, power metal band from Brazil, active since the early 90s, although ironically, they might be at their peak of visibility right now in the last year or so, since their lead guitarist Kiko Loureiro joined a little band called Megadeth for an album called Dystopia. Behind Sepultura, of course, they're one of the most notable metal bands to come out of Brazil, but beyond that, their music has always really stuck out of the flock to me as well, in terms of power metal specifically. Angra are without question one of the most musically sound and intricate groups that the genre of power metal has to offer, which is why I've always kind of gravitated towards their music as opposed to bands like Hammerfall and Primal Fear, who are sort of rehashing what Iron Maiden and Judas Priest already perfected in the early 80s. Not to say I don't love a handful of those retro-sounding power metal acts, but Angra's music has always kept me a lot more engaged because of the high level of musicianship and the more nuanced songwriting. Yet, unlike a Symphony X or a Dragon Force, they never get overly technical and lose sight of great songs. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. So in terms of the band's discography, today we're going to be focusing on their fourth album, Rebirth, which came out in 2001, but quite frankly, the follow-up to this album, Temple of Shadows, could have just as easily warranted a video, to the point where if an Angra fan were to make an argument to me for Temple of Shadows over this album, I wouldn't even bat an eye. But Temple of Shadows is a little bit more of a heady concept album, whereas Rebirth has a more direct and immediate, straightforward impact, so for now, Rebirth gets the video love. But seriously, if you like what you hear on Rebirth, Temple of Shadows is a great listen if you want to hear an Angra record that's more indulgent, more intricate, and more maximalist in its presentation. But back to Rebirth. This record is a little over 50 minutes of beautifully composed power metal with a slight symphonic edge and a particular emphasis on stellar guitar playing, which is maybe why it's so appealing to me specifically. But it's also just a quintessential power metal record in that it embodies all of the key elements of the genre. Uber melodic high register vocals, Ronnie James Dio style lyrical content, new wave of British heavy metal style guitar riffing, and decorative keyboard flourishes that kind of strip away that typical heavy metal harshness and give it more of a sugary coating. But at the same time, even though it's a quintessential record in this genre, it's rarely weighed down by the staleness of a lot of power metal, and it's spiced up by some particularly mind-blowing guitar playing as well. For starters, I just want to jump right into some of my very favorite tracks on here, because it is not a concept album, it's simply a collection of awesome songs. So, Millennium Sun, Heroes of Sand, the title track Rebirth, and Running Alone are four of the best songs you will ever hear in this style. Millennium Sun is a track that builds so effortlessly from this quiet and serene first minute that's basically just piano, vocals, and a little bit of violin into this explosive rocker. And the main riff that kicks off this transition is this glistening mid-80s Ozzy Osbourne style riff that I just eat up. And then with the verses in this track, you get a very rare 1-2 punch in a catchy vocal line and a catchy riff underneath it. So it's the best of both worlds, which you don't always get in metal, because you'll either have a harsh vocal with a catchy riff, or you'll get catchy vocals with a simple riff. So that's one of the things I really love about Millennium Sun. But where this song truly blossoms, like a lot of songs on here, is the chorus, which features these larger-than-life, belting vocals from singer Eduardo Falaschi, and then also these softer, low-register background vocals that sort of act as a response to that soaring melody that's up front. So it's a lovely vocal arrangement in a song that would already be outstanding just as an instrumental. The track Heroes of Sand is another mind-blowingly beautiful song. It's another song like Millennium Sun, where instead of the full-on ballad, the band opts for more of like rapid-fire dynamic shifts. This is a song like Millennium Sun that stays quiet for a relatively short period of time before leaping into the heart of the track. And the heart of the track is this thunderous blend of crunchy guitars and cinematic keyboards and piercing melodic vocals, as well as acoustic guitars when the mountain-sized chorus comes in. which this is the best chorus on the album besides Millennium Sun. On this track, the acoustic guitars and strings have such a fantastic supporting role in rounding out what is already quite a chorus vocally, with Eduardo Falaschi just reaching for the sky with lines like "Heroes go down with their hearts in their hands." It's just so triumphant. And then the final chorus, there's this key change that makes you realize that really all along the song was just building to this one final chorus. But what's crazy is the best moment on this song is still yet to come, and that's the outro solo, where you have Falaschi continuing to sing over the guitar solo, and then you have the keys and acoustic guitars and mammoth-sounding snare drum behind it. And it's just the perfect, epic ending as the track kind of fades out into the sunset. The title track, Rebirth, we'll discuss in a minute, because what makes that song so great has more to do with my next point, but Running Alone is another fucking highlight. At 7 minutes plus, it's the second longest track on this whole album, but it feels like 2 minutes because of how seamlessly it flows. Rhythmically, the track is called Running Alone, so appropriately, the drums keep a pretty frantic pace throughout all 7 of these minutes, but it's what goes on top of them that's constantly evolving. You've got the choir intro, and after that, you've got a real tight Iron Maiden style guitar harmony lead line, which then segues into a synchronized guitar and keyboard line, which almost reminds me of like what Children of Bodom was doing around this same time period. It's the middle chunk of this track, though, that's, and I hate to use this cliche, but it's such a roller coaster ride from the moment that the vocals drop out at around the 3-minute mark to when they re-enter at around the 5-minute mark. This chunk of the song features a real chaotic barrage of notes from the piano at first, which is then quickly joined by a real busy supporting guitar riff, and as soon as the momentum reaches its apex, it's finally brought down by quite possibly my favorite moment on the whole record, which is just this beautiful melodic lead guitar section. It just oozes emotion. And then it launches into a mindfuck guitar solo section, which brings me to my next point. Why does this album stand out so much? Well, it's simply put, some of the best guitar playing you will ever hear. I am not exaggerating. On this album, Kiko Loureiro plays with an unfathomable amount of taste and originality and flash at times, and so does Raphael Bittencourt, who shares some of the lead guitar duties with him. Just listen to the title track, Rebirth, which utilizes incredibly rich chord progressions in the verses for all you guitar nerds, stuff like ninths and 11ths and 13ths, chords that you wouldn't even necessarily expect to work in metal, but these are the chords that give that song that airy, soaring feeling. And then later on, when the drums and electric guitars enter, they start to incorporate more neoclassical elements in their playing. And then the solo section on that song, quite possibly the best solo section on the record, Kiko attacks it with kind of this bouncy feel and incorporates some out-of-the-box ideas like chromatics and stuff. And then when Raphael comes in, his section is a lot more sugary and melodic and contrasts it nicely. Exhibit B for outstanding lead guitar playing is the whole solo section on the song Nova Era, which goes from this exotic, harmonized tapping lick into a more traditional main solo with screaming bends and bursts of shred, and then a neoclassical string skipping section that's played at light speed. This solo section really covers all the bases for great guitar playing. Then there's also Heroes of Sand, which in the first verse features these clean guitar chords being arpeggiated with tapping, and it gives it that feel as if the notes are almost gliding into each other. It was the first time I had heard anything like it, and it still floors me every time I hear it. But yeah, if you're in the market for world-class guitar playing, Rebirth is a must solely on those grounds. And so are Kiko's solo albums like No Gravity and Sounds of Innocence, which, my god, those deserve their own videos. And beyond all that guitar playing stuff, I enjoy this album for its unapologetic use of keyboards and synths and strings, which add that delicate touch to the music that allows these enormous melodies to shine through in all their cheesy glory. And I love this album for its various moods. You got like 80s party metal on the beginning of the track Unholy Wars Part 1, which is one we didn't even get into. And then later on that track, the band kind of hints at the style they would more wholeheartedly embrace on Temple of Shadows. So in terms of an excellent, beautifully executed modern power metal record with top-notch musicianship, nothing's going to spring to my mind before Angra's Rebirth. This is not only one of my very favorite power metal records, but one of my favorite metal records, period. And it serves as a constant reminder to me that this style of metal can be just as potent as the stuff from the more extreme corners of the genre that I love too. So definitely check this thing out. As always, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, or shoot me a message so we can continue to talk music, and I'll see you guys soon.